Houston, Texas, 1986, a world-class drag queen entertainer comes into the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. What really happened to Patrice LeBlanc, and can her boyfriend convince police his bizarre actions after her death were totally innocent? Episode 66 of Crime Over Wine starts right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Crime Over Wine, the only podcast with head-scratching true crime stories that are just better over a bottle of wine. I'm your host, Liam Collins, and this week, my guest co-host is the host of her own podcast. It's called How Would You Rate Your Pain? It's a therapy podcast exploring the human experience because why not, right? We all have that. My guest co-host this week is Dr. Tiffany Bartel. Hello, Dr. Tiffany. How are you?
Hello, Liam. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. You know, I have a pretty low threshold for all things scary. And so I am so excited that you handpicked this one. I will gasp. I'm going to try not to scream for your listeners' benefit, but I'm really excited to hear what happened.
Dr. Tiffany, withhold zero sound effects. I just need you to understand that. You know I live for that. So Tiffany came to our live show that we had a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago now at this point. And so that was really one of the first times that I met you, Tiffany. And I just remember hearing you from my left, just at every twist and turn. I mean, that's how I knew that people were really into it because I could hear Tiffany's every reaction. So which I love.
It's a lot of gasping.
Yes.
I've got my scream response a little bit under control. I've been working on that in my adult years, but no, I am very authentic. So you get the full experience.
Well, I love that about you even more, just for the record. So change zero parts of you, just so you know. But also, because I emphasize this very clearly, but Tiffany Bartel just became a PhD holder. She's a doctor, right? And so I wanted to clarify that. And I like to give to give everyone their flowers, especially when you make such a huge accomplishment. And so I also want to clarify that I call her Dr. Tiffany because she is very much so my therapist. So
yes, I am the podcast space therapist and happy to do so. Couldn't pick nicer people.
Love it. And I was on your podcast a couple weeks ago, which was so much fun.
So fun.
And so go listen to that. That was out a couple weeks ago. But tell everyone about your podcast, what made you start it, tell everyone a little bit about you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so I finished my PhD last August, and I keep having dreams that I have papers due, and I wake up in a cold sweat, but I'm okay. So that, I guess, takes time to go away. So I'm a local therapist, and I do some adjunct teaching, but I love stories. I love people's stories, and I kind of wondered if there was a way to make a public space to share like encouraging stories and growth and resilience and then also just like really good work that's being done in the world. And so that's what we've been trying to do. And that's some of what brought you onto the show was just the wonderful world of crime that's so, I think, respectful. That you create with your podcast. And so for those of you who are going to go look it up, Liam and I just kind of giggle throughout it. I think at one point I told you about how I accidentally dated a drug dealer in high school.
That's right.
So check it out. But yeah, the podcast comes out twice a month. It's called How Would You Rate Your Pain? And it's been just this really lovely little project to work on. So yeah, check it out, guys.
Yeah, I love the podcast. I love Dr. Tiffany also. We have such a great time. And you're right. Pretty much every conversation that we have is pretty much exclusively just us giggling to each other. And so I love that came through in the podcast episode. But yes, go check them out wherever you get your podcasts. It's in lots of episodes that Dr. Tiffany already has in the queue. But, I really, frankly, my life's motto, which is, always have a bottle of wine handy. And so are you ready for that? Because Tiffany, because I told you I was like, I have the perfect bottle of wine for you. And the reason why is because I just went purely for recreational purposes to the liquor store to get a bottle of wine, and this bottle of Rosé caught my eye, and I was like, sure, why not? Like, everyone knows I'm not a huge Rosé person. I go for my Cabernet, and that's pretty much that's my go-to for my purposes. And so I asked the guy who worked at the liquor store, I was like, is this bottle any good? And he was like, yes, it is. It is my favorite bottle of wine that we have in the store. You have to take it, and I promise you'll be back for more. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. It's my new favorite bottle of rosé, y'all.
Yay!
Like by a
Okay.
long shot. And so if
Okay.
you are not typically a rosé drinker, you are going to want to check out Barnard Griffin's Rosé of Sangiovese. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's a deliberate result of careful winemaking. It features an expressive nose with melon rind, maraschino cherry notes that complement its strawberry nuances. It is full-bodied yet also bright and fruity, and I have to say, like, to a T, like that is the best way to describe this wine. I mean, I feel like I just like retasted it, even just listening to myself read that. So
it sounds like the perfect summer wine. And so
yes.
I didn't take my first sip. I've been saving my first sip for this time together, and I can't wait.
Okay, excellent. Well, I need to get this bottle open. Everyone knows how much I struggle to get the bottle open. I feel like I have like performance anxiety whenever I'm on the podcast and having to open the bottle of wine.
Well, and this cork is tough.
Yeah.
I had to really wrestle it. I had like a moment of fear of like, oh no, what if I can't get it open today?
I know. I feel like I always have that moment of fear whenever I can't do that either, because I'm like, what am I going to drink tonight? Okay, wait. There you go.
There you go.
Love that sound. And let me get this bad boy poured out.
And it's pretty too.
Yes,
I kind
it
of
is.
love the way that the label is kind of like juxtapositions too.
Yeah.
It's not like standard.
Yeah, no, I love it. And so it clarifies it's a dry rosé, which everyone knows how much I love dry wines. But it's very dark. It's a very, very dark
is.
pink.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because typically I think of, darker wines as very, very, very fruit forward, very sweet. That's not the case for this at all. And so I'm not wasting a single extra second. Tiffany, we're already 7 minutes into this podcast and we haven't drank a single bottle of wine. That's a crime. Let's go ahead and do that. Cheers to you, Tiffany.
Oh, that's lovely.
Lovely.
It's so smooth.
Yeah.
And it feels like really like almost like thick. It's like I could take this on a picnic.
Yes.
And like eat a sandwich and some like chocolate covered strawberries or something. Like this, and it's not sweet at all. Yeah,
this would be perfect for like a very late summer drink, like 8 o'clock, like the sun is setting, like if it's still out, like it's still light out. That'd be perfect for that. And it has like a very, very, very subtle like effervescence to it. It's very, it has that little bit of carbonated kind of feeling, almost at the back of the tongue.
Yeah,
but it is so good. I'm telling you, he said he was really like, he'd be back for more. And I went back when I wanted to go buy this bottle and I was like, you were right. Yeah. What's that meme of like, love it, give me 14 of them right now or whatever. That's how I feel. That's how I feel about this.
Well, he's selling it well because when I went to pick up my bottle, there was like only a few and it was like on this end and I had to get help finding it. And
it's in a very secluded area. And I can promise you that there probably wasn't a whole lot left because I bought the rest of them. And so I made sure I had one for Dr. Tiffany at least, but
sorry, Chattanooga.
That's right.
Sorry, you don't get to drink this right now.
Right. Yeah. Hey, go find this. But if you're lucky, because Dr. Tiffany and I probably bought the rest of them. But yeah, I thoroughly love this wine. Again, it's Barnard Griffin's Rosé of Sangiovese. Again, I hope I'm saying that right. I'm I never claim to be a language person.
It sounds perfect.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Dr. Tiffany signs off.
Yeah.
Well, Tiffany, I have to tell you about this case this week because I knew about this case, but I didn't know all like the intricacies to it. And so I really went in on a deep dive this week on this case, and I just need to tell someone about it. Are you ready for this?
I think I am. I am. Yeah.
We're going to find out if you're ready. Okay. So this week I want to take you on a wild mystery that has become, again, one of the most infamous murders in the Houston LGBTQ plus community. When the girlfriend of one of Texas's most popular drag performers is found dead, rumors spread like wildfire, and Brandi West is at the center of it all. This week, I want to tell you the story of Patrice LeBlanc, Brandi West's girlfriend. In Houston, Texas, 1986, the LGBTQ plus community was kind of like the city's worst kept secret. The prominent members of the community were very visible. Just about everyone knew their names and where they could go and find them to see them perform. But as you can imagine, the general public didn't have much of an appetite for that community, to say the least. So while the community was very public when they were performing, they hid their actual identities pretty intentionally, like almost like kind of like the superhero kind of vibe. Like they were one person, like this big, larger than life personality at night, but really just average, everyday people during the day. You would never even know that they were the same person. No one personified that more than Brandi West. She was a sharp-tongued drag queen, one of the most famous ones in Houston at the time. Her performances were laced with insults disguised as jokes. She was just unpredictable and over the top. According to some reporting that I read when I was researching this case, she at one point even took a real chainsaw to a new railing that had been, added to the stage of the gay bar where she performed at, and it was rumored to be just because she just didn't like the railing.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so except for the murder part, as you're saying that, I'm like, oh, she sounds so fun. I would love to be her friend. Except for the whole part about the murder that seems like it's coming.
Right.
Yeah.
Listen, it's never a good thing when you're mentioned on this podcast, right? As much as it, brings up your notoriety, it's usually comes with, bad things in the back end. But, everyone knows I love a good drag show. And so and this kind of just sound like, some of the most, memorable, drag queens that I've, seen perform is just the ones that, have a lot of attitude, really, or show off in their face, are larger than life, really big, big bright colors, big hair, that kind of thing. And so that seems like Brandi for sure.
Definitely. Also, so sad this is all going to turn out the way it is because anything where they start rearranging the decor of the place where the show is being held, I'm there for it.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Oh, yeah, right. We were going two different directions in that, but yes, correct. Yeah. Well, okay. But by day, though, Tiffany, Brandi West went by Cliff Ewens, a man born and raised in Texas who went about his day-to-day fairly normally, again, totally nondescript, practically unrecognizable from the larger-than-life personality he put on at gay bars across the Houston metro area region at night. Cliff proved himself to be a master of disguise, as evident by his lavish and extravagant clothes he would wear when he turned into Brandi. But frankly, anyone who knew Cliff as Brandi felt that Cliff was really the best disguise that he had. Cliff couldn't be more different than Brandi West. Cliff was fairly reserved, kept to himself, and was dating a woman. 32-year-old Cliff Ewens was living and romantically involved with 20-year-old Patrice LeBlanc. Patrice was just, naturally gorgeous. She was from Lafayette, Louisiana originally, and when she moved to Houston, she met Cliff, aka Brandi, at the peak of his career around 1982 to 1983. Cliff and Patrice went everywhere together, including to Brandi's shows, and the pair started getting involved in Houston's drug scene, too. But while everyone knew Cliff as the extraordinary Brandi West, it was really only those who were closest to Cliff who knew him as Patrice's boyfriend/lover. Most of the reports I read referred to the duo as roommates, but it was, made pretty clear to me that they were far more than just that.
I'm just so struck by how many secrets this guy keeps. He has this, I love the part where they say his civilian day to day, being Cliff is the ultimate disguise, but he has this job that no one knows about in this other side of himself. Then you also have a relationship that, there's just so many secrets and so many different twists I think this could take.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because and when I say when you say secrets too, people who were closest to him knew he was Cliff, knew who he was during the day, knew that he was dating Patrice, but anyone outside of that tight circle didn't really seem to know who he was or who or who he was dating by any means. And so but it is interesting because again, typically, and this is the 80s, so you just take this with a grain of salt, but 2024, most drag queens are gay men, and so that is interesting that he's dating a woman for sure. And so, but again, it has to. Again, this is at the peak of the AIDS crisis. It's at all this time when being gay or being a drag queen is definitely looked at as a little bit of a stigma, and so I would imagine that's kind of playing a little bit of a part in this as
and
well.
And he's in Texas. I mean, that's just so
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
some of it, definitely makes sense of why they felt that time, that place.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many layers to his like
Yeah, that's right.
experience as a person.
Yeah. Well, and so yeah, we're gonna unpack that even more. So let's definitely get there. And everything seemed mostly normal, especially for the flippant and intense lifestyle that Cliff had led, and that Patrice had happily joined along in enjoying. But let's just cut to the chase here and say that didn't last. Of course, on March 23rd, 1986, Patrice LeBlanc's body was found to have surfaced in Lake Livingston, a reservoir about 50 miles north of Houston. Her body had been wrapped in a tan and white comforter and had been anchored by two concrete blocks. One was gray and the other had been painted yellow. She had been stabbed more than 35 times with deep wounds to her throat, chest,
Oh
and
my
stomach.
goodness.
The medical examiner later said that some of her body parts had been completely severed and that 8 of the stab wounds would have been fatal on their own.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. My apologies for the gasping, but oh my goodness, this is so much. I mean,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, this is
Yeah.
a bit what why? What
Yeah.
happened?
Right. Well, so that's a good question, Tiffany. And like we did take like a little bit of a 180 turn in terms of like where we were going with this story.
Yes.
And so to be clear, like most of the reporting I saw didn't really clarify, and I guess this is kind of the reason why it feels so jumpy. But like most of the reporting I saw didn't really clarify like how she was found, who found her, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And this is a big lake, a big reservoir,
Okay.
and so certainly not like.
But it's just so much like that's
Yeah.
very stabby. Let
Yeah.
me just say that. That's just very stabby. And then like why are we taking body parts off?
Mm-hmm.
That is not
Yeah. And I never
not
saw
necessary.
like what body parts were severed either. And so I guess maybe it wasn't super relevant, but like I would be kind of curious to know that.
Yeah, this is just kind of horrifying. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what a shock. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not that she's dead or has been killed. It's such a gruesome way.
Yeah.
And really intense.
Yeah. Very, very intense.
Okay, so what happened here and what does Cliff have to say about this?
Well, Cliff had said that Patrice had disappeared just a few days after the pair had taken a weekend trip together around mid-March. Now, I never really once saw anything that even suggests that Cliff had, ever really reported Patrice missing during this time after this whole trip. But interestingly, Tiffany, do you want to venture a guess where this weekend trip that Patrice and Cliff had taken was?
Oh my gosh, where?
Well, it was to Lake Livingston, the same exact lake where Patrice's body was found.
Oh.
Cliff had said that they had taken a trip to the lake house his parents owned, which was right on the shore and came with a boat his parents owned. Now, Cliff admitted this openly when police first questioned him about Patrice's death, but he says they had a great weekend together, and they both made it back to Houston safely to get back to reality, and then just, I guess, shortly after that, she disappeared. So he seems to be pretty shocked by the way Patrice was found, and certainly by her sudden death. Now, Cliff answers all of these questions willingly on April 3rd, just days after the medical examiner had officially identified Patrice's body. They even talked to some of Cliff and Patrice's friends and Cliff's coworkers too, and they all have, pretty nice, normal things to say about Cliff. And investigators make really clear that they are going to want to talk to Cliff again very soon. And so they know for sure that Cliff was going to be at this club performing that next Sunday, that's April 6th, like he does every single week at the club. But when investigators show up to ask Cliff some more questions to get some more clarity on what happened to Patrice, they are shocked to learn that Cliff never showed up for his performance. Crime Over Wine is sponsored by BetterHelp. As someone who's used therapy for years, I know that finding a therapist can sometimes be a stress on its own, juggling your full-time job, your family, your friends, your podcast, and trying to find the right therapist on top of that can almost feel impossible. That's where BetterHelp comes in. BetterHelp matches you with a therapist that works for you on your terms. It's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to one of 33,000 licensed professional therapists in as little as a few days. And because finding a new therapist is a lot like finding a new bottle of wine, if you don't jive with your therapist, you can easily switch to a new one at no additional cost. You can get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp by going to betterhelp.com/crimeoverwine. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/crimeoverwine for 10% off your first month. Join over 4 million people who decided to get help and get happy with BetterHelp. Cliff was a no-call, no-show to the performance he was a weekly regular cast member for. Now, obviously, this was a major red flag for investigators, but that flag turned bright red when the very next Sunday, Cliff was scheduled to perform again, and Cliff was a no-call, no-show again for the second weekend in a row.
Oh my goodness, my mind is going 10 different directions. Like, I love like so much of the beginning of this episode. And so I want him to be innocent and just like trapped somewhere, but I feel like that is maybe not what's going to happen. So, what did the investigators think happened?
Well, they really don't know, Tiffany, but at this point, they are pretty safely assuming that Cliff, skipped town to avoid answering questions from police about Patrice's murder, which, regardless of whether he is a suspect is or not, is, not a great look at the very least and is straight up, illegal at worst, right? Like you can't, evade a police investigation. And so state police in Texas launch an all-out manhunt for Cliff Ewan so that they could get some more clarity about how his girlfriend was found dead floating in a lake near where his parents owned a home and where he admitted he had just been with Patrice just days before she had been found dead. And police say from the beginning, even in public notifications about the search for Cliff, that looking for him was going to be tough. And again, Cliff was a master of disguise, and as time went on, it became even clearer that Cliff could be anywhere, posing as just about anyone.
I didn't even think about the fact that he's so good at disguising or looking
Mm-hmm.
different. It is not looking good for Cliff.
Yeah, right. Well, and again, like just to kind of paint this clearer picture, right? Like, think about like for people who've never been to a drag show, right? Like they use like, they wear these big flashy costumes that
Mm-hmm.
like don't look like themselves. They put like frankly like prosthetics on to like,
Mm-hmm.
obviously because they have like, breasts and, all this stuff. And they wear these big wigs, like, lots and lots of makeup. Like they don't look like the same person,
Yeah.
a lot of times, and a lot of times they dress up as other people, like and it can alter their image even more so. And so that's kind of what they're saying is that like this guy clearly can make himself, and I frankly, and let's actually do this really fast because I want to show you just how good at it he is.
Ooh, am I gonna get to see a picture?
Yes, you're gonna need to see a picture. I just thought of this, and let's do that.
Oh.
Yes, we're gonna link to it on our website,
Oh, very
so
dope.
so you can do that. But so this is Patrice, or excuse me,
Oh my
this is
goodness.
Patrice.
Okay.
This is Cliff. This is Brandi.
Oh my goodness. Okay,
Does
Cliff
not look
and
the same
Brandi
person.
doesn't look at all. And honestly, like that particular picture of Brandi, you could go out and buy groceries. Like it's not,
Right.
you know, it would not catch attention.
Yeah, no, not at all. No, she looks like a very well done up woman. You're so
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So that's kind of what they're dealing with, right? Is someone who
Wow.
can, by day be one person, by day be someone, or by night be someone totally different. And that's what they're dealing with, and that's who they're looking for at this point. So obviously, again, and for as someone who, as obviously anytime that time goes on with this type of situation, you get you can get further and further away. Like you
Hmm.
can really be anywhere. And so by this point, we're talking about April 13th, and they had last talked to him on April 6th, on April 3rd. And so that's what
That's a
they're
long
dealing with.
time. And this
That's a
is the
long time.
80s. So
Mm-hmm.
we don't have like all the things that we have
That's right.
now. I mean,
That's right.
people aren't even really carrying, they don't have cell phones. You can't Google like Now I feel old, but yeah.
Yeah, right. But like, good point, and keep that in mind too, because we're going to talk about that a little bit again later. Because like, it's so easy for us, like in 2024, to be like, oh, well, why didn't they just do this? Why didn't they just do
Yeah.
this? And we forget how new a lot of this technology really can
Oh
be.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, in this kind of high-profile case, the rumors always swirl, and this was no different. There were rumors that Cliff had been spotted in cities in New York, Nevada, California, and more. There were even rumors at one point that Cliff had been murdered and found by Texas Rangers, and police had to come out and clarify to the general public that those were not true either. They did get a pretty good lead when Patrice's 1985 Mazda was found at the Hobby Airport in Houston, but they didn't get much evidence from it, from what I can tell, and they couldn't really figure out how it got out there either. And that was the state of this investigation until they got a tip from one of Cliff's friends who let them know that he got a letter from Cliff. The letter said that he felt police were looking at Cliff for Patrice's murder and was in hiding until he could find a good attorney or until the investigation was closed and Patrice's real murderer was behind bars. Cliff said in the letter that his life had been shattered by Patrice's death and the accusations against him that had followed. He made really clear that he was capable of many things, but he was not capable of murder.
Oh my goodness. So like the therapist part of me wants to be like, oh, like poor Cliff. He feels so alone and like everyone's against him. And then there's part of me who's like, he probably did it. So I don't know what to think. I don't know what's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, well, and I think that, like, and so I kind of look at it from a couple different angles, right? Of like, yes, sure, like, if, I could see a world where he's like, oh my gosh, like I didn't do this. They're going to come after me. They're going to come after me. And so like, I'm going to run away. But like, you should also kind of have the common sense enough to know that that makes you look so much more
So
guilty.
guilty. Yeah.
And it's like, because again, I've been in a lot of courtrooms, and like I remember there was one court case that I was covering, murder trial that I was covering, and the suspect had also run and had not come forward. And in that case, the prosecutor in that case was like, an innocent person will come forward and say, I cared about this person. What can I do to help find the person who did this? And they don't run away, and so I think that's really important to keep in mind.
Yeah. So, for people like me who obviously would be terrible at a life of crime, I have too much like guilt. Even when I haven't done anything, I'm like noting, I'm like, if I'm ever accused of something, turn myself in.
That's so true.
Like this is like a good takeaway from today.
That's so true, because I always say like don't mess with me because I will kill you and I will get away with it. But I also think about all the times that I like have even like looked like I may have like stolen the cookie from the cookie jar,
Yeah.
and and like even though I know I didn't take the freaking cookie, like I
Yeah.
immediately start thinking of like ways that I can get out of it, even though I have nothing to do with it. And so I think about like that's such a good point, because there's like so many more elements than just like the physical evidence that you can get rid of, which again I still maintain that I would be able to get rid of it.
But for the record, he would never have to because he would not do the crime.
Correct.
So, we don't want anyone to be like, I mean, I can't say that I didn't hear Liam like
That's
say
right.
he was gonna, yeah.
That's
No,
right. Just for a podcast, not for reality.
You have dogs. You're a
Right.
busy person.
Right.
You don't have time.
Right. And I'm a happy person, and as
You are a
Al
happy
Woods once
person.
said, happy people don't kill. Period.
Then everyone is safe around me and
Right.
you. It's
Right,
gonna be
correct.
okay. Okay.
That's right.
But if
That's
you were
right.
ever accused, turn yourself in.
That's right.
Okay.
Or at the very least, again, if you're ever accused and you didn't have anything to do with it, come forward and say, "What
Come
can I
forward.
do to help?"
That's better.
Right? Like that's
a
there you
better
go.
way to say it. Not turn
That's right.
yourself in.
Don't
I'm
turn
already
yourself in.
assuming people are going to put me in jail.
Right.
Just come
Right.
forward.
Right. Excellent. Tiffany, we'll coach you. If you ever get yourself into trouble, come to me and we'll
I'll text you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Don't do anything else before that. But between Cliff's odd appearance and this letter, police have enough to pursue a search warrant on Cliff and Patrice's home and Cliff's parents' home on Lake Livingston. So police search the home that Cliff and Patrice shared together, and they find that it's like really clean. Not just clean enough as though they were just like, really clean people, or even as though they like, had just cleaned the home. The home just didn't really look lived in, Tiffany. And they figure out that what looked so odd was the carpeting and the walls. It looked as though the apartment had just been freshly painted and carpeted. And so investigators rip the carpet up and they find on the plywood blood that was underneath the freshly laid carpet.
Oh my goodness. Okay, the first thing that stands out is also if you're innocent, don't have a house that's too clean. Just
That's
don't
right.
do that. Just don't do that.
That's
It's a
right.
sign.
Don't, and that's why I always say, like, I very rarely buy cleaning supplies because I don't want to look like I'm cleaning up a
You don't
crime
want to
scene.
look guilty.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
whatever's
right.
there is there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I really have to know, did the blood belong to Patrice?
Well, again, we were talking about, the problems that they were having with technology at this time,
Oh
Tiffany, and it didn't
no.
really seem like technology at this point was advanced enough to be able to test the blood necessarily like against Patrice's DNA. Around this time, police would just kind of compare blood types, and if it's say like A positive, and then that Patrice had A positive blood somehow, then they would just operate as though it was Patrice's blood. It's the same kind of thing as with like hair at this time. Like they would just kind of
Okay.
compare it and say, like, does this look the same? Like, are like is the makeup the same? Like, is the hair, the color the same? And that's how they would kind of figure out or decide whether or not it was a match. They didn't have the technology to like forensically test it at the time. But neither here nor there, because it's pretty obvious based on the reporting that I saw that police safely move forward as though the blood does indeed belong to Patrice.
Yeah, this is looking very suspicious. It's clean, it's like hidden blood. This is
Yeah,
this is a lot. Okay, so you said they
yeah.
executed search warrants at Cliff's parents' house too, right? So did they find anything significant there?
Oh, yeah, they
Oh
did, Tiffany.
no. Oh
Police also
no.
search, again, Cliff's parents' lake house, including that boat that his parents owned on the lake. And what they find is just about all they need to know who's responsible for Patrice's death. Get ready for that big test with Study.com. Study.com offers learning materials and test prep, even LSAT study prep guides for all of my legal nerds listening. Unfortunately, there aren't any wine study guides, and believe me, I did check. Listeners can get 30% off their first 3 months of any subscription level using the promo code CrimeOverWine. Again, that's promo code CrimeOverWine, no spaces, for 30% off your first 3 months at Study.com. Learn faster, stay motivated, study smarter with our sponsor, Study.com.
Hello, friends. It's Michelle Herron, the co-host of Crime Over Wine Weekly, your place for the latest true crime news. Every Monday, Heather Hawley and I share our takes on the cases making the headlines, from missing people to murder cases to the mysteries that only bring about more questions. We talk about it all over a new bottle of wine. Of course, every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, Tiffany, I am thoroughly enjoying this glass of rosé. Is it your new favorite rosé now, as it is mine?
It is my new favorite. I feel like I have to race you to go back to the store to pick up, or maybe we'll just share
Yeah,
the
yeah,
loot. Like whoever gets there first,
that's right.
we'll just ration it out, or maybe they'll just order more because these are the last bottles on the planet.
Tiffany, I will always share my wine with you, just to be clear. You don't have to worry about that. But no, I'm really, the more I drink it, the more I enjoy it. And it's also one of those wines that like just makes you feel good. You know what I mean? Because there are
Hmm.
like some wines that, just really hit you, and you're supposed to, it gives
Yeah.
you like a really certain feeling. Like red wines, like, really kind of like make me tired, like, bring down my energy level. This is one of those that just like makes me feel like wine is what like wine is supposed to make you feel, right? Like that's how I feel.
Yeah.
I'm feeling, my energy's up, that kind of thing. But I'm also talking to you, which I'm always going to be whenever I talk to you. So
Yeah, I think so. I'm wearing a cardigan right
mm,
now, for those of you who can't see us, and this feels like, a nice, like it's a summer evening. I'm wearing a light cardigan. I'm sipping this. It isn't like it doesn't really taste really like strong or
mm-mm.
alcohol-y. It's just like a lovely, it's the smoothest wine I think I've ever tasted in my life.
It's very enjoyable. I feel like the only thing I'm really missing is like some friends out on the deck, like, you know, with like a citronella candle going to like keep away the mosquitoes. Like that's like, I feel like I'm just missing some really good conversation, you know?
Some outside time.
Yeah. Tiffany, I'm coming over and using your deck after this. So
come over. I have a deck. I'm going to tuck you into the hanging chair and like give you treats.
Perfect.
I made a strawberry rhubarb pie yesterday. You know
I did see that. I did threaten to come over and steal some.
This would be perfect.
It would be perfect. This would go very, very well with a nice fruity pie or a nice fruity dessert. You're right about that. I feel like I need to move on before I get too enthralled into your desserts.
Really hungry?
Yeah, a little bit. Okay, well, let's get right back because I left you on a pretty good cliffhanger here.
I'm not okay right now.
Yeah, okay.
I need some more information.
Let's get going. So, you know, on that boat, police find yellow and gray concrete chips and paint scratches that matched up perfectly with the yellow and gray blocks that were attached to Patrice's body when she was found floating in the lake.
Oh my goodness. I have like two responses. One is like Cliff. If Cliff did it, like, how could you use the furniture from your own parents' like boat? You know what's or was it the boat? Yeah.
So
the boat. Why would you do that? Like, don't do that.
So and so to you know, kind of reiterate, because I went through that a little bit fast, but so they found like concrete chips, right? Like again, like cinder blocks, like you can kind of picture that. And then they also found like scratches, almost as though they were like dragging it across. Like
I get it now. So he didn't use the concrete's not from the furniture. It's evidence that the concrete blocks were on the boat.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
clearly, I have not tried to hide a body before. So.
Hopefully, never will. But point being there is like the very like it's the very specific like yellow and gray that was there, and so they were able to determine that, you know, Patrice was on that boat somehow, or her body was on the boat because the concrete blocks were there too. And so clearly whoever got ready for body in the lake used that boat.
Cleaned the house, but didn't clean the boat.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And like, again, let's kind of go back to like, who are the two people, or who's the only person who's connected to both of those places where they, you know, found very good evidence that a crime had been committed in some way. It's Cliff. So it's not looking great for Cliff. But, you know, police, you know, create the timeline that Patrice must have been murdered again inside of her and Cliff's apartment and brought to the lake, wrapped in that comforter, weighted down, and dropped from Cliff's parents' boats. And I should also mention, I don't think I mentioned this at any other point in the episode, but they were also able to determine that comforter was Cliff and Patrice's comforter as well. Somehow, I'm not exactly totally sure. I'm wondering if it just like matched the sets, like the bed sheets or whatever, but they were able to figure that out too. The indictment revealed that investigators believed the comforter that Patrice was wrapped in belonged to Cliff and Patrice, and that the concrete blocks also came from inside of his apartment. But there was one problem, of course. Police still could not find Cliff to bring him into custody over a month after Patrice's death.
Wow.
But despite the rumors of possible sightings, nothing really came to fruition. Meanwhile, by this point, the shine and glamour of Brandi West had started to dim with the news that she may have committed murder and was on the run by now. On May 15th, after all of the bad tips that had come police's way, they finally got one that seemed pretty good. Someone had called police to tell them that Brandi was attending a performance at Houston's Music Hall, where he was now sporting bleached white hair. They also received a tip on the same day that he had been staying at a La Quinta Inn in West Houston, which wasn't terribly far from the music hall, so it seemed pretty legit. But when police checked those tips out, neither one turned up any sign of Cliff or of Brandi. And afterwards, an MC at the music hall tells reporters that they thought police had built a pretty good case against Cliff from what they told him. And according to this MC, police had only told him about a quarter of the evidence that they had collected against Cliff.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So it seems like maybe the public opinion is kind of turning in this case, along with, you know, law enforcement and the judicial system. Like, pretty much it sounds like everybody thinks Cliff did this.
Well, and let's also remind ourselves too, like, we're like, police are talking to people who are like heavily entrenched in this community, who like definitely know who Brandi West is. And so, yeah, you're right. Like, it's, you know, it's one of those situations where it's like, wait, that like, our Brandi is capable of this, you think? Like, and it's kind of like, and we kind of get into this a little bit later on, so keep this in mind, but it's almost like one of those situations where it's like, no way. Like, I know Brandi, like, I know her very well. Like, there's no way our Brandi is capable of this. There's no way. And so I think that's really important to keep in mind. But just like the divisive nature of this whole thing too, as well, where like you're dealing with like a member of the LGBTQ plus community, like in the 80s, like it's just not, it's not adding up entirely.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, Cliff.
Well, by June, the news about the massive manhunt for Houston's most famous drag queen turned infamous suspected murderer had gone national. Agencies across the country were issued bolos for Cliff's description and all of his known disguises. And that was the reason for why the next part of the case played out the way that it did. And Tiffany, you're just not going to believe this part. So buckle in, grab your glass. And on June 16th, police get another tip about Cliff's possible whereabouts. Only this time it came from a source that was a good bit more reliable than the previous ones that they had spoken with. It came from a state police captain in Maryland, thousands of miles away from Houston, who said that he was there when Cliff's mother had called a friend and mentioned that she knew where Cliff was hiding. Cliff's mother, not knowing that the police captain happened to be in her friend's home at the time, said that Cliff was at their home in Houston hiding out with friends. So when police get this tip, they head to Cliff's parents' home in Houston and find Cliff's friends in the home and Cliff Ewins himself in a closet under a sheet trying to resemble a clothes hamper.
I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. Like, yeah, that's not the best hiding strategy.
No. You're trying to disguise. I mean, you're master of disguise, but like try to disguise as a clothing hamper.
I mean, that's a bit of a stretch. Like, everyone has their limits.
Yeah, well, and I don't really understand how police, because it sounds like his parents were helping him the whole time. And so I don't really understand how police didn't search, and maybe they did, I don't know, but like didn't search their home at any point. Like it just seems odd. And like, to be clear, like this is like a different home from the lake home that they had where Patrice's body was found. And so keep that in mind. But like, it's just odd. And then, so again, obviously his mother at least is helping him. Yeah. And it's like accidentally tips off police based on a phone call to a friend. And like, I don't know. I don't really understand how, like, if you're harboring a known fugitive, maybe don't tell your friends about it. That, I don't know. Seems silly.
I have two thoughts. One is maybe they did search the home and maybe he really did look like a clothing hamper last time. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Okay. Inquiring minds. And then also, like, if he's hiding here with his friends, there's quite a few people who've known where he is this whole time. And I don't know what to think about that.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think that kind of goes to show you a little bit too about how people viewed Cliff in terms of just they didn't think that he could have had anything to do with this. So I think that's really important to keep in mind. Like people clearly thought very highly of him enough to hide him from the police when they thought that he may have been a murder suspect. So I think keep that in mind. And this always kind of goes back and forth in my brain of if my close family member is even accused of murder, would I be able to turn them in? Like, I don't know. Like, I think about that all the time. Like, I think it would probably depend on who it was, frankly. but you know what I mean? Like, I just always think about that. How deep do your friendships really go? Or are you willing to harbor them, if they're accused of murder? Like, I don't know.
I think that's such a meta question, and I will definitely have to ponder it. But Liam, if you ever need to hide from justice at my house, I'm going to need to know you have a better plan than being a clothing hamper, pretending to be a wine bottle, whatever else comes to mind. Like, I need to know you're going to have a plan A and a plan B for my situation.
That's very fair. And I would obviously let you know about that. But I think there's I will say, you are what you eat. So I think, or you are what you drink. Like, I think it's only a matter of time before I turn into a bottle of wine.
Okay. So you could maybe pull off a very, a very dignified
large
bottle of wine.
There
Yeah.
are some big bottles of wine out there. I think I could
Okay.
probably pull it off. So
I believe in you.
I don't know, but hopefully I never have to do that. But again,
Yeah.
we're back to Cliff, and he was arrested, and that clothing hamper disguise did not do him very well. He was held on a $200,000 bond. And when he was questioned by police, he maintained that he had nothing to do with Patrice's death. Cliff said that Patrice had her own set of keys to his parents' boat. They hung in the kitchen, and all of their friends knew that. He also claimed that they regularly didn't lock their door, so the possibilities of who could have killed Patrice and used that boat to get rid of her body are really endless, according to him. As for why Cliff left town after Patrice's death, he said that he was just so upset about her murder and frankly scared that it happened at the lake where his parents owned a home. So he felt as though someone was setting him up and wanted to buy time leaving town so he could figure out who that was.
This story feels a little bit like his clothing hamper strategy.
That's fair.
Like, I just am having a really hard time with all of it. Like,
Yeah, I'm not loving that excuse. I mean, I don't know, because again, I go back to like if you really had nothing to do with it, then help police find out who did. Like, if you think that you're being set up, help police find out who the right person is.
Prove you have an alibi, whatever.
Right, exactly.
Like,
right, yeah. And again, and we didn't even really talk about this, but like well, we kind of mentioned it a little bit, but so this weekend trip happened in mid-March. She wasn't found, and like he said, he openly admitted that they got back from this weekend trip. She went missing at some point, and then she was found dead on March 23rd, which is like well past what I would consider mid-March. And so I'm just like, I don't really know exactly the exact weekend when this trip happened, but point being is that like if you really had nothing to do with it, then like why didn't you report her missing? Like that's what I don't really understand in all this, is that if Cliff is really innocent, then like why did you not report her missing when you realized that she was missing, if you really cared about her as much as you said you did?
Yeah, this story is not good. This is not a good story. He is not doing a good job.
Yeah, not great. But, investigators weren't buying this story. They continue their case against Cliff, and the trial against him starts off pretty quickly on September 8th of that year. Prosecutors tried to paint Cliff as deceitful, someone who had the ability to pretend to be anyone he wanted. Brandi West, Cliff Ewins, or someone who wasn't capable of murder, but who secretly was. Testimony that played out in the courtroom revealed that Patrice had recently been trying to end her relationship with Cliff. Cliff's co-worker, Noelle, testified during the trial that Cliff had flown into a jealous fit of rage when he had seen Patrice talking to another man at the gay club where he performed. Another friend had testified that leading up to Patrice's murder, Cliff had started acting erratically and that his personality had started getting more extreme and more violent. And then, get this, Tiffany. The prosecution also calls a carpet salesman to the stand who testifies that on March 10th, Cliff had paid for new carpeting to be installed and insisted that it be installed on the same day that he paid for it. And the prosecution also introduces evidence that suggested that Cliff may have sold some of Patrice's jewelry on March 6th in order to pay for that new carpet job.
Oh no, this is not looking good for him.
Yeah, I've never seen a carpet salesman really take down a murder suspect, but here we are.
I think that they should use this in marketing somehow, right? Like, I'm surprised we haven't heard of this. Yeah. Also, maybe don't be shysty with your carpet buying. And
yeah, that was weird. It is like, again, like how odd of you to be like, no, that needs to be installed right now. Like that's a little strange. But like, so, and again, we like let's go back to this, right? So like this weekend trip happened mid-March.
Yeah.
By March 6th, he's already demanding, or at the very least, setting up a plan, selling Patrice's jewelry to pay for a carpet job. And so like, that does not align with this mid-March, timeline.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't align at all. So that doesn't look great. And like, again, and also makes me wonder about like why wasn't anyone like she was, because like she was found on March 23rd, but she wasn't identified until like early April.
Yeah.
And so like there's a whole month of like nobody reporting Patrice missing. That makes me a little sad. And like that also makes me wonder if it was like just how involved in the drug community she was, like we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, that they had gotten involved in that. So maybe it was just normal
for her to disappear for a little while.
For her to disappear, yeah, or for to not see people consistently, right? Because like I obviously, like if I'm not texting, like my mom, like my very close friends, or like seeing those close friends on a regular basis, then those people know that that's abnormal behavior for me. Whereas like maybe like it seems as though maybe she just surrounded herself with a lot of people who she would just see very sporadically, and it just wasn't abnormal for her to go missing for a month and not really see anything about it, or think anything about it. And it also makes me wonder about like how tight of a grip Cliff had on her.
Yeah.
If he was the only one who noticed, or supposedly noticed, that she was missing.
Yeah, because her friend Noelle, at work, or different people seem to know her, but it doesn't seem like she has like an inner circle. And like, as a woman, I'm just thinking, if I knew my friend's boyfriend flew off in a jealous rage or was being erratic, I would want to be seeing and hearing, and like, there wasn't cell phones and social media and all that stuff, then.
Right.
But I would want to be seeing more of them, not less of them.
Right.
To make sure they were okay.
Yeah, right. So check on your friends. This is your sign right now. Check on your friends. On a regular basis. Yeah. But it just make me, and it just makes me sad, I guess, about like the last few weeks of her life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what makes me sad, because she was like this gorgeous girl. Like she had there was no reason for her, to not have a lot of people who cared about her.
Yeah, absolutely. So why would Cliff do all of this?
Well, there is one last piece of testimony here, Tiffany, that is a pretty big bombshell that prosecutors end up showing to the jury. A bombshell that paints a whole new picture of Cliff and Patrice's so-called relationship. Crime Over Wine is proud to support Emancipet. Today, there are over 60 million beloved pets across the country whose families cannot access or afford veterinary care. With your help, Emancipet is changing that. Emancipet is a nonprofit that offers low-cost vet care for those who need it most. They rely on donations to keep their costs low for pet families across the country. You can support Emancipet's mission at emancipet.org.
Hello, Crime Over Wine listeners. I am Rachel.
And I'm Heather.
We are the hosts of Like Mother, Like Murder.
We bring you the good, the badass, and the crime.
Each week, we bring you stories from missing and murdered
to survivors and women who empower you.
And of course, some mom talk sprinkled in.
Check us out wherever you get your podcasts at Like Mother, Like Murder.
And give us a follow on social media so that we can say hi.
Okay, love you, bye.
Okay, love you, bye.
Prosecutors call Lenny McDaniels to the stage, who says he was Cliff's former lover of 5 years. Lenny testified that their relationship was mostly purely sexual and that it ended shortly after he met Patrice. Lenny said that Cliff wanted to turn his life around after meeting Patrice, and that he mostly did, and that was pretty much the end of that relationship with Lenny. But on March 19th, Cliff called Lenny to his apartment after he said he was feeling suicidal, and prosecutors believe that they had already rekindled their relationship and likely killed Patrice as a means to pursue his relationship with Lenny without any strings attached.
Oh my goodness. Okay, where has Lenny been in this whole story?
That's a good question. Yeah, I would love to know that too. But like, again, so Cliff calls Lenny on March 19th. We know for sure that Patrice has been dead for at least 2 weeks by then.
Sure.
And so that's really interesting. But so Cliff himself too, which is really interesting because this like very rarely ever happens. And like, frankly, any good defense attorney will tell you like, don't do this. But like Cliff even testified in his own trial too. which is really interesting. But he ended up clarifying a lot of the things from the investigation, or tried to anyways, including why he left town after Patrice's death. And so that's when we get the story about like, oh, he was feeling so distraught. He was feeling very scared. Like he wanted to go, he felt like he was being set up. So he like left town to like go buy himself time to like, prove that was true, which he never ended up doing. And so it's important to note that as well.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay. So then what happens?
All right. Well, so after just 45 minutes of deliberations, the majority of which was spent eating lunch, as at least one juror told a reporter for the local paper, the jury convicted Cliff for the murder of Patrice LeBlanc and was sentenced to life in prison. Shortly after, Cliff asked for his case to be reopened and for a new trial to be held, this time in another city. He argued that he was too famous and that the case was too infamous in Houston by now, and that affected his ability to get a fair trial. He even wrote a letter directly to the local newspaper, the TWT, which was the main source covering the trial at the time. And Tiffany, it's too much of a ride for me to be able to read this. This letter, I need to pour myself another glass of wine while you read this, but can you read what he wrote for us, please?
I would be honored to. Okay. Dear TWT, first, let me say thank you for the hundreds of letters I've received on the several occasions you've printed my address. Through these letters, I have made some new and loyal friends that have continued to write and show me their love, faith, support, and belief in my innocence. I must say that it is through these letters that I find the strength to hang on till my appeal. I never knew how many people cared. The only part that makes me sad is that 85% of the letters were not from my old friends. They seem not to be able to find the time or words for me, but to the few who did, and all the fans and newfound friends, thank you. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I am fine and healthy. I have not written before, as I was asked not to communicate with any press till my case was over, and believe me, my case is far from over. The trial transcripts have been completed, and my appeal was to be filed on May 15th. From there, we hope for a whole new trial, not to be held in San Jacinto County. I can't say what went wrong the first time, other than I was the victim of misjustice in a tiny, quote-unquote, Greater Tuna-type town. I offered no defense or witnesses, as I had not done anything wrong, but they weaved a story of weak, circumstantial evidence, and several witnesses' lies convicted me. Not to worry for me, though. Justice will be done. The only frightening thing is I'm safely locked away from whoever did that heinous crime to someone I loved so much. But he is still out there with all of you. I would like to say one bit of thanks to New and Broad, aka Naomi Sims. My love and thanks to you for your honest and helpful testimony at my trial. Your facts, dates, and memory helped to prove the prosecution and their theories wrong on several occasions and dates. To you, I'm eternally grateful. Clifford Yunes. Oh my goodness, I don't know what to say to that. I was trying really hard not to read it with attitude, but I think I failed miserably.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of attitude in the letter for sure, and this is like one of several that he ends up writing to this newspaper, including one where he interestingly he like calls them out because the paper like printed that he was in the wrong jail, which is odd because it's like, why does it matter what jail you're in? Yeah, unless like I know there's like some jails that are like the infamous like jails where everyone like like Alcatraz like type jails like per state. So like maybe that's what he's worried about, but it doesn't really seem that way. And the reason like my kind of theory is because like we kind of glossed over this at the beginning, but like so all the letters that they received because this paper printed his address in their paper, and like even like there are like because there's like one source that this one website that was created that kind of compiled up all of this newspaper's reporting on this case, and at the end of almost all of the cases or the reports after he is arrested ends with, if you would like to write to him, like here's his address, which is so strange to me. Like really I've never seen that before.
You don't want people to know where you live.
Well, no,
Yeah.
it was when he went to jail. Like it was like
Yeah.
the address or whatever, his mailing address to
Oh.
his jail cell.
Okay.
And so it's like like they were, I don't know, it's just weird. Like I don't know if that was like at his request or what it was, but like it was like he clearly was like living off of this like notoriety that he was getting. Yeah, the attention, all the letters, like, you know, all the support or whatever. And so it's
Even though
just
his
seems
old
strange.
friends can't find
Right.
him,
That's right.
apparently.
Right. Which is
Yeah.
just gross because I don't really understand. I never really understood people who like wrote to murderers or accused murderers or convicted murderers or whatever in jail. Like I don't really get that. Like just like get other things to do.
Right. There's a lot
So,
of other good to do in the world
Yeah.
that could be productive.
yeah.
And
That's right.
it's clearly not helping him because he's just, you know, he's not taking any responsibility. It's not like he is remorseful in any way or being authentic in any way. And I
Yeah.
love how he like calls out his supportive friend, but obviously their testimony did not prove the
Right.
prosecution
Yeah.
wrong
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
You're in jail.
Yeah, and I didn't really see exactly what this Naomi Sims testified. Exactly, it sounds like maybe it was because it sounds like Naomi Sims may be like his drag queen name, and so I wonder if I guess maybe he was a friend, but that. I don't know, neither here nor there, because you know, Cliff's new trial request was pretty quickly denied by a judge. And Tiffany, that's where things stand with this case. Again, it kind of ends kind of abruptly, but that's kind of where we were. But yeah, what do you make of all that? Because I mean, just a wild ride of like, just like, you know, really big moments and then just like really dark moments. And then it's just kind of like, is what it is, I suppose. Right.
Yeah, and I think it's such an unfortunate story because there's so many unnecessary things that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's clear that like, you know, the family, yes, he's in jail, but he never actually told anybody what happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so there's that bit of closure that's still stolen.
Yeah.
And that seems really sad and hard. But yeah, I think it's unfortunate that like people can gather like these fan bases or,
Right.
you know, and we see that I think happen all the time in, you know, the public now where, you know, somebody says or does something and then, you know, just because you get enough people to be on your side or be loud about it doesn't mean that you didn't do something
Right.
wrong.
Yeah.
And so then we can't evolve as a society if, you know, that's the kind of support that we give to people is support that like makes them stay where they are. I just like went really therapist in this situation.
A little
Also,
bit. I
the
love
story
that.
is like super gaspy and like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, what a heinous crime and what a weird turn of events. My
Yeah.
favorite part is the clothing hamper.
That's fair.
I'm
That's
just
fair.
gonna giggle about that all week.
Yeah. That's. I have a lot of questions, comments, and concerns related to that for sure. That you could probably really heavily, you know, dissect my brain of what's going on in here based on what I just read and talked about, which is a great segue, I think, right back into your podcast. And so I would love for you to tell everyone where they can find you and your work online.
Yes. So I am on Instagram. I am the happy therapist. I think it's the_happy_therapist with maybe another underscore because somebody else is the original OG happy therapist apparently. But
We'll get that URL.
Yes, but definitely check it out. And then the podcast is How Would You Rate Your Pain? It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and also on YouTube if you want to see what everybody looks like. But yeah, if you like it, share it, listen. Liam, your episode with me is one of my favorites. And so I thoroughly enjoyed listening to it. And I'm glad we actually got some work done in there because we did have a really good time. Yeah.
We did. We can't help ourselves. Really can't help ourselves.
No, we can't.
And that is every other Wednesday, correct?
I believe so, yes. Every other Wednesday. Stay tuned long enough, you'll get another one.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you again so much for coming on this week, Tiffany, Dr. Tiffany, and thank you all so much for listening. We are going to put all of our sources on our website so you can read everything for yourself and probably come up with a few theories too. And if you were just loving this podcast and you're just looking for a way to tell everyone and anyone about it, the best way to help others discover this podcast is by leaving us a 5-star rating and a review wherever you are listening right now.